Good morning, everybody. Get your calculators out. Let's go ahead and do this. So the very first thing I want you guys to do is to go on to Canvas and open up the A2 calculator instructions, which looks like this. So take a minute and do that. If you do not have a calculator, that is fine. I say that's fine. I completely understand. I've kind of explained this a few times, but it's a state standard and expectation that we have a calculator. So you can do this 100% by hand like we did on Friday. But that gets pretty nasty. So get this open. I'm going to adjust my camera here real quick. I'm going to do a calculator view. And I'm going to walk you through this step by step. So hopefully you guys have this up there.
I can't open mine.
Take a screenshot of this or take a picture with this with your phone. Hold on, let me make sure I've got it all. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I've got on my screen right now, if you could take a picture of that, if you can't open it, this is what you need to know. Now, I'm going to take this off my screen so that you guys can see what's going on. All right. Does anybody need me to hold this for another few seconds while you take a picture or open it up? All right, then I'm going to stop sharing here. Sorry, I need to make sure that that works. That's crooked, isn't it? There we go. All right, so can you guys all see my calculator? Pretty good. I want you to see the entire calculator. Got a light right above my desk.
Everything below 789 is cut off.
Yeah, I see that. So I want you to see some of the keystrokes here. You guys can see the keystroke. There you go. That's pretty good, right? Can you see the, yeah, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through this step by step. So I know a lot of you guys, some of you still don't have this. A lot of you guys have never used this. This technology is not going away. So I'm going to teach you how to do absolutely everything on this, one thing at a time. So start by turning it on. All of this stuff I don't really need. So the very first step, the first thing I want you guys to do, so that up there where it says scatter plots, turn your diagnostic on. In other words, this is going to give us some data, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So how do you do that? You hit second 0, that's catalog, and follow along, do it one thing at a time. Don't try and get ahead because there's a lot of places that people make mistakes. You scroll down all the way to where it says diagnostic on. So diagnostic on, and I want to hit enter and hit enter again, and it should say done. The next, we need to turn our stat plot on. Now the stat plot means we're plotting statistics. So anytime you see stat, it's statistics. We're plotting data on the graph. So to turn your stat plot on, you hit y equals, and I really want you guys to see this because it's important that you know how to turn this off and on. I want my plot one on, I just hit up, and where it's flashing, when I hit enter and I scroll back down, it is now highlighted. So my stat plot is now on. That means whenever I graph this, I will be able to see those data points. And whenever you are trying to enter data, we are entering statistics. So entering the data, you hit stat. Now let's go ahead and back to quit. Let's hit stat. If we are trying to enter data, we need to edit it. So I have no idea what's up here. Now I'm going to give you guys some things here just to put in to practice this. All right, whenever we do this, the L1, that is your first list. L2 is your second list. Now put in like the points for L1, put in 1 and 3. For L2, put in 4 and 1. I want to kind of see where we are real quick. And if you guys could, I won't have it up on the screen very, very long, but we turn your videos on for just a couple minutes here. Thank you. And I literally mean, I don't mind it that they're off, but just give me like 2 minutes here. I want to make sure that you guys are all following me. And also, it's been a while since I've seen your guys' faces. So I'm starting to get real familiar with your names, but man, I don't know who's who. And I got, okay. All right, so what I want you guys to do is, again, I want you to put a 1 and 3 in your L1 and 4 and 1 in your L2. Now make sure that you are following along with this. I want to teach you how to clear this off correctly. So if I go up to L1 and I want to get rid of that data, I want to clear this off, all I have to do is hit clear and down. So if I hit clear and down, that means I clear the entire column. If I hit delete, it's going to delete the entire column, but that's not good because that whole L2 will be done. I'll show you how to put that back in a second. So if I want to clear off all of the data, go up to L2, hit clear and down, and all of my data is clear. Do not hit delete. But just in case you do, I'm only going to show you this one time. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here so you guys can see this. So what happens if I do hit delete? If I hit delete, notice it went from L1 to L3. This is bad. The reason that's bad is because when you guys go, you'll have all of your data in here, but nothing is going to graph. None of your stuff will work. So if you accidentally do it, and I promise this has happened every single year at least once, if that happens, you see in blue where it says INS. Well, if I want to get to that, I hit second INS. I'm inserting a new column. And how do I get the L2 back down there? If I look down by number 2, right above it, it says L2. So how do I get that? It's a secondary function. So second 2, and it's back in. Now today is all about using your calculator. So let's go back. There we go. So we've turned our stat plot on. We've turned the diagnostic on. I showed you how to enter data. I showed you how to, I showed you how to enter data. Now we need to know, how do we make the equation? Well, there's a couple different things that we can do. So let's go ahead and put those points back in. In fact, let's do like 1, 3, and 5. And over here, let's do like 7, 11, and 15. So this is just made up data right now. Now, again, I want to let you guys know the L1 on the left, that's your X column. That's where the X's go. The L2 are your Y columns. So this is really saying I've got the 0.17, I've got the 0.311, and I've got the 0.515. So now that I have that, we are trying to make an equation with the data. So to make the equation, you hit stat again. Can you guys see the stat right here? So hit stat again. And this time I want to calculate my linear regression. And what that means is I'm trying to figure out if this makes a straight line. So we're talking about linear models and linear modeling. So does it make a straight line, or is it close to a straight line? Yes or no, kind of what we did on Friday. So now that I have that, I hit enter. I make sure that my X's were my L1s, my Y's are my L2s. Don't mess with your frequency list or that. Go down to calculate and hit enter. Now I'm going to talk about the R squared and the R in just a second. But I want you guys to see this. Now, what happens here at the top, this gives me the generic equation. So linear regression is saying y equals ax plus b. How do we write that equation? Well, your a value is 2, so 2 goes in for the x, or in for the x, in for the a, and your b value is 5. So my equation for this would be y equals 2x plus 5. And that's it. Now, R squared and R, that's the data I was talking about. I'll walk you through that in just a minute. And I'll let you know what that means. Any questions so far? And we're going to try this on our own. Again, the good news is I know Big Ideas was down over the weekend. So your assignment tonight is going to be the same one that you guys had on Friday. So get that assignment done. And then we're going to move on tomorrow. So we've done all of that. Now, the next thing is, what if I want to graph that? So to transfer your equation to the graph, I want you to hit y equals vars. That stands for variables. Now 5, what are we putting in there? We're putting in our statistics. Enter. Scroll over to equations, and we want our regression equation. And we're going to, I know this seems like, man, there's so much to know here. We're going to do this like 5 times throughout the year. This is the very first time, first day. And I know a lot of you guys don't have this. This will save you a ton of time. If you're trying to do this by hand, it's going to take forever. But then I put it in. So vars, I'll show you how to do that again. Vars, down to statistics, and then over to equations, and we want our regression equation. Now, if I'm trying to graph that equation, I hit graph. But man, I don't see very much. So if I'm trying to graph it, I'm going to hit graph. That's this. And then I'm going to zoom in. And I want to zoom in on the statistics that I just put in. I want to zoom in on that data. So I hit zoom 9. And there's those 3 points that we put in. Okay. Now, if you're trying to make a prediction, let's say, well, ooh, now that I've got the line of best fit, well, I want to know, what about if X was like 20? What's my Y value when X was 20? You're trying to make a prediction. That's the last thing on the screen. Go to window. And again, if I said if X was more than 20, then I need to make sure that my X max is more than 20. So what if I say my X max is 21? I have to change my X max. I'll show you another way to do this in just a minute. So my X max is more than 1, nothing else is changing. So if I want to get back to that, I'm going to go ahead and hit graph. And I'm going to hit second trace, that's calculate. And want to calculate the value when X was whatever. So in this case, I said when X was 20. So when X is 20, my Y value is 45. Again, I know that you can do this from hand. I'm trying to take something that you know how to do by hand and teach you how to do this on the calculator. Any questions?
Can you go from the Zoom 9 thing? I got lost.
Yep. So Zoom 9, I just heard some. So to graph it, if I'm trying to graph this equation, I'll hit graph, right? So if I want to find just those data points, I hit zoom, which is right here. And then I want to zoom in on those statistics, that data that I just put in. So zoom 9, that's how I get these 3 points up here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Now, if I'm trying to make a prediction, so a lot of times once we have this, we only put this in to find our prediction, to make a prediction, right? So if it said I want to know, now that I've got that equation, well, what if X was 100? If X was 100, I need to change my window to make my X max more than 100. So it could be like 101. And then I would hit graph, second trace, that's calculate, and then whatever value I want. So the value when X was 100, and this would give me 205. By the way, I said there's another way to do this. So understand this also. I could do this. I could do second table, and this gives me a list of all of my values. So second graph brings up the table, and if it said make a prediction when X was 8, if I didn't want to do all that, I can just scroll down and say, oh, well, when X is 8, Y is 21. When X is 10, Y was 25. If I wanted to jump all the way to 100, it would take me about a minute to scroll down, or I could do this. I hope you guys are watching. Second table set, well, I could just type in 100 and then go straight to the table, and it jumps to 100. Now, in person, I could make sure that you guys all get this. Right now, you're kind of on your own to make sure that you're following. Again, this is all being recorded so you can go back and watch. Now, I'm going to go back to screen share real quick, and I want us to practice doing one or two problems. So there's the screen share. Let me get rid of that. So let's go through this one. And I'm going to walk you through this. Remember, this is the one that we did on Friday. You don't have to write anything down. I want you to try it in your calculator. All of my X's go in L1. So how do I do that? I hit stat, edit, which is 1. And I want to clear that data off. Again, how do I clear it? Go up to L1, hit clear down, L2, clear down. Make sure that you line them up. So every X has to have a Y. It doesn't make any sense if I left one blank. So make sure I just type all my X's in, then all the Y's. So my X, my first one is 40, then 45. and 32, 50, 37, 41, 30, 34, 47, and 45. So all of your X's are in L1, all of your Y's are in L2. I'll go ahead and do that. Now pay careful attention. A lot of times your eyes will skip right over something and it won't line up. You'll have an error. By the way, the majority of errors that happen in this are by people either mispressing something, fat fingering it, which means you hit two buttons at once and you don't really realize it. So I'll give you a second, make sure it's in there. Now, so most of the mistakes are made by people just misentering something. They'll say, I got different data. Well, make sure that you put it in correctly. So take some time there. Now that you have that, you're ready for your equation. So once it's all in, you hit stat again. And I want to calculate my linear regression, which is y equals ax plus b. Again, I don't know why sometimes we call it M, sometimes we call it A, but that's what it is. So linear regression AX plus B. So scroll down that or hit 4 and enter. And you can just hit enter all the way through. And there's your equation. Now, this is something that eventually you're going to need to know how to do this well, how to do it pretty quickly. I obviously don't expect that today. All right. So from here, what this says is my equation, y equals ax plus b. So my a, you can round to the nearest hundredth. So 2.60x, y equals 2.60x. And I'll write that up here. And my b value is 64.996, which I can round to 65. Any questions about that? Okay. Then I'm going to show you this one more time. Where's mine? So you see the r squared and the r. This means two different things. So the r squared, as long as that is above 0.8, all that means is how closely is this actually linear. So 0.989 means it's 98.9% linear, which means it has almost a perfect correlation. Now, this is kind of funny, but the R is actually called your correlation coefficient, which means, and it has to be between -1 and 1. If it's 1, that means it's perfectly linear. If it's -1, it means it's perfectly linear, but it's got a negative slope. So it's kind of evaluating how close this is together. If it's positive, that means it has a positive correlation and it's very strong. If this would have been, if my R squared would have been like 0.99 and my R value is like 0.8, it still has a positive correlation. It's just a little bit weaker. So we'll talk a lot more about the R squared and the R as we go along. If this is close to 0, that means you don't have, or your points don't lie very close to any line. So we'll talk about that again here in just a second. Again, really, all I really want you to do is pay attention to the R squared value. If the R squared value is closer to 1, so above 0.8, then it actually is, it's got that relationship, a linear relationship. All right, last thing that I have for you guys to do, and then we are finished. Let's do one more. Oh, by the way, I forgot to do this. Estimate someone whose femur is 35 centimeters long. So if I want to estimate that, I want to go ahead and graph. Oh boy. But here's that whole zoom statistics. I want to zoom in on those statistics. And you guys can see it's going up like that. And that's my line of best fit. Oh, I got a problem though. I never put it back in. I don't have a line because I didn't put this back in. Well, how do I import that equation? By hitting vars, statistics, equation. So if you ever don't have a line, it's because you forgot to import your equation. Now, if I graph, all of a sudden that line is in there, and that's what makes a line a best fit. You can see it is not perfectly linear, but it's pretty close. I'm trying to make a prediction when my, when my height is 35. Is that what that said? Yeah, whose height is 35, but that's why. And I want you guys to pay attention to this again. If I'm trying to make a prediction and my Y value is 35, I'm going to go to Y equals, and under my second value, Y2, I'm just going to put in 35. And let's see what happens. Was it femur? Hold on. I got to look at that again. Let's see. If so, write an equation of a line and use it to determine the height of a person, the femur, sorry. Never mind. Let me back this up. So if I'm trying to predict when the height, when the X is 35, again, I'm going to go to second table set, and I want to go to 35. And then second table, and it looks like somebody's going to be 156.12 centimeters tall. I'm going to add on one other piece. What if I said, well, what if somebody was 190 centimeters? How could I see how big their femur would be? Now I could scroll down. I could definitely do that. Or I could do this. If I hit Y equals, and I just said, what, 190 centimeters tall? I can type in 190. And then when I graph this, I can find this point of intersection. Like I said, tonight, I'm just trying to introduce you to this. So you might want to play around with it a little bit. Well, how can I tell exactly where that is? This is the part that's pretty cool. Well, I know I want to find the point where they intersect. So you see where it says calculate right here. So if I hit second calculate, I want to calculate where they intersect. It says first curve, second curve. I just have to move that mouse right there, or spider, real close to that point of intersection. It doesn't have to be right on it, but close to it. Hit enter second curve as long as it's close, and it will bounce to the point of intersection. It says guess. Yeah, I want you to guess. And it looks like my value is 48. When X is 48, my Y is 190. So that means somebody that's 190 centimeters tall, I would expect their femur to be 48.01 centimeters long. Is it exact? No. But that's about what I would expect. Any questions? Again,
How do you,
tonight
like,
you, oh yeah, go ahead. Tonight you don't have an assignment other than to do the one from Friday. Oh, but I'm going to show you this one last problem. I'm not screen sharing anymore, am I? There's too many things going on. So let's share screen. Again, somebody's going to say, can't I just do this by hand? You can, but when we get a lot of data, especially if it's messy like this, you don't have to do it by hand. So this is our last problem, and then we are finished. So take a minute and see if you guys can answer this question. If you have questions, let me know.
Wait, Mr. Riley.
Yeah,
Big Ideas isn't working for me.
it's still not up.
It says that it's like the page crashes every time I try to open it.
So I know that I told you guys on Thursday. Last Monday, they changed the user interface and they did the same thing again this weekend. So I didn't even know how to assign a homework problem. They've changed it twice within a week. I didn't even know how to do that until somebody came in and showed me what they messed around with it late last night. Caden, let me look at it. I know that they've been working on this, so I'll talk to you, Tennis, tonight. But anybody else, try and get it done, because this is all stuff that you need to know. You know, it was an Algebra 1 standard to do this by hand. In Algebra 2, you need to be able to do this by calculator, because we're going to get into some messy data.
I mean that if we have tennis,
You'll have tennis.
hopefully.
Might not be outside, but we'll be somewhere.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's take a second here. I'm entering the data while we're talking. So in my L1, and how did I get there? By hitting stat. So all of this data, all of these points, this table are statistics. So I went and I cleared my rows by hitting, my columns by hitting clear down. My X's all went in L1, my Y's went in L2. I'm going to keep this up for about 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to keep going. So what this says is, first of all, does it show a linear relationship? Yes or no? If so, what makes it a linear relationship? You're only looking at the R squared value. The next part is write the equation, which I'll walk you through. Then find the cost of a smoothie with 8 ounces of fruit. Does anybody need me to leave this data up here longer? All right, then let's do this. So as you can see, I've got my L1 and L2. So once it's in my stats, now I need to write an equation with my statistics. So I hit stat again. I go over to calculate, and I want the linear regression. Go all the way to calculate. So my equation should be y equals 0.5. If you wrote 0.51, that's fine, or 0.50, because that is a 5, it really should be 0.51. So 0.51x plus 0.87. Does this make a linear equation? Yes, because my r squared is really close to 1. It's 0.97. How strong is it? And is it positive or negative? It's pretty strong because at 0.98, again, that means it's a strong positive correlation. If it were negative 0.98, it would be a strong negative correlation. Let's import that. So if I hit y equals, I clear this stuff off. Let's import that. How do I do it? I hit variables or vars. I want to put in my statistics. Scroll over to equation. Enter. I want to graph. Oh man, I don't see anything on my graph. So what do I hit? Zoom 9. So my zoom on my statistics, I can just hit 9. There you go. So it looks almost perfectly linear. One of the things that throws us off is this down here. By the way, if you have one data point that's like way up here or way down here, does anybody know what we would call that?
An outlier.
Exactly. It's just an outlier. There we go. The last thing it said was, what's the value? What's the cost if I use 8 ounces? So I can hit zoom or second window, that's table setting, and I can hit 8. Then second graph, that's table. Well, the cost with 8 ounces would be $4.90 or $4.91. So this calculator is really pretty cool and it will save you a lot of time. So again, try and get on big ideas. If you're having trouble, send me an email. But get your assignment done from yesterday because tomorrow we are moving on. All right. Any questions? Have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys tomorrow.